Hey friends, let's do some art. Today we're going to be creating an abstract design using shape, line, and color. You're going to be needing a ruler, some crayons, markers. I have a permanent marker. I also have a Crayola marker. Either will work. And you're going to need some circular objects to trace. You can gather these objects from around the house. Okay, so I have some objects here I found around the house that are circular, and we are going to trace these onto the paper. Did I mention that we needed paper? So let's move these off our paper, and we are going to trace some circles onto this paper. Don't trace all your circles on the paper. You want some of them to come off the side. So I'm going to start with this large one right here. I'm going to put it up here in the corner, and it's coming off my paper some. So I'm just going to trace it very lightly so that if you make a mistake, you can erase it. So I've got that large one there, and I might want to put a large one somewhere else, maybe down here at the bottom, coming off the paper also. So like this. Then I have all these other circles that I'm going to trace onto this paper in different places. I have about 7, 8 circles on your paper of different sizes. So here we go. Okay, so I've got some circles on my paper. There's lots on there. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9. You can erase them if you like. So there's my circles. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a ruler and we're going to draw some lines on our paper. Now we do not want these lines to be dead center of your paper, because we don't want to look like we have 4 rectangles or, you know, dead across the corners like this, because then it's going to, all you're going to see is a big X. So aesthetically, we're going to have to offset the lines. So let's start up here on this side right here. When I'm drawing my lines, I want to make the lines light so I can erase if necessary. And I want to stop when I get to the circles. I don't want to go over the circle. So these circles are going to look like they're in the foreground. So here we are. We're going to stop there again. And we're going to come down here and stop at the end. So that line looks like it's in the background. We can just leave it a single line like that, or we can kick it up a notch and put some line weight in our project, which is what I would like for you to do. So I'm going to put another line right next to it. Stop at the circle. Stop at the circle. So that has made my line thicker. And when it comes time to trace it, you can make it too thin, like trace it thin like this, 2 lines, or you can color it in solid. It's going to give your project some line weight. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a bunch of lines on here. Okay, so I've drawn all kinds of lines on here. I've got diagonal lines that I stacked right here that I intend to make dark. Over here you have just diagonal lines, nothing that's dead center or any X's that's right in the center from corner to corner when you do your lines. All right, so now after we've done our lines, we're going to put line designs in the circles. And after you've looked at your design, you can always go back and add. I've got dashed lines here. Oh, oops. I've got dashed lines here. and solid lines. Some of these, when it's time for me to color it in, I can decide to leave them thin or color them in thick so that we can vary the line weight. But so what we're going to do now is we're going to take different types of lines and we're going to put them in the circles. So let's start with this circle right here. I'm going to put in a wavy line. Very lightly. And then I'm going to put in this thing called a castle line. This is what we call it. So I'm going to go straight up, across, up. Kind of looks like a castle. Okay, so maybe I want that to be doubled because I want it to be thicker. So I'll just go down here and make some lines inside. All right, so then you can add other designs to this, maybe a wavy line at the top. And you can call it quits for that one and move on to another one. So you're going to design every one of your circles with different kinds of lines. And you can always go back in and make some of them thicker for line weight. So let's put some designs in the circles. Okay, so I've got all my circles with some patterns in it. You might like them, you might not. You can go back and change later before you put them in marker. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trace these lines. And this is a long activity. I understand you might want to do it in a couple days. So I've done my designs and now I'm going to trace them in marker so that I can color them in later. This is when we're going to decide to make some lines thin and some lines thick. You can, like the double lines, you can just make that one line that's thick, and then these dashed lines can be thin. This is where you decide that. I would do all the lines first and don't go over the circles, and then you can go back in and do the exact same things with the circles. Okay, so rotate your paper is what I would say. I'm finishing this up. Rotate your paper so that you're pulling toward yourself when you're tracing over these, because it's always easier again to pull toward yourself than it is to push the marker. So it's a good idea to rotate your paper. All right, so once you have everything traced that you want traced, then it's a good idea to take an eraser and erase over everything gently, because it does leave behind pencil marks and we don't want those on there. So just erase everything gently. All right, so we're going to throw this in the trash. Okay, friends, that took a while, but there it is. You can call it quits. Like I said, with black and white, always, it's your art. You can decide. It looks nice like this. It's nice abstract line design art with shape. So you can just call it quits here, or you can kick it up a notch and let's use some color. Now, what do I suggest for the color? I think that we should do a monochromatic design. Monochromatic means one color. And you can use any shade or tone of that color. For instance, I have my crayons divided into monochromatic groups. And I've got blue, greens, and pinks or reds. When you're dividing your crayons, it's very helpful that they have decided to put wrappers on there that represent these colors. So you can see that these wrappers are the same. In here we have one that might be questionable. You're looking at it, let's see, you're looking at this and you might thinking, is that blue or is that green? If you have any questions, the wrapper, look, has green, so that goes with the green. So you can vary a little bit on each side of the color wheel, but monochromatic means one color, so get all the shades that you have of one color. Just pick the one that you have the most of, or the one that you like the most, and use that. I'm going to go ahead and go with pink. Okay, so let's start coloring. Here's some things I want to point out about coloring. So if you have an area that you're going to color, and you've picked a crayon, let me pick this one. It's wise to use crayons and color in one direction. And when you get to the edges, or you can use little circles. This is what I prefer because it doesn't leave lines. And I'm not pressing really hard, and I'm just using little tiny circles to color. And again, light pressure. This way I don't really have directional lines if you're using little tiny circles like this and go over the area. Now that's very light. You can decide if you want to shade in some areas darker than the other to give it some value. Maybe come up here and leave the middle section and just have some highlights that way. And every section that you color should be a different. Like, don't let this color that you just used touch with it in this a space next to it with the same color. So pick up something different and let's test it. That's pretty much the same. So maybe it wouldn't be a good color to use there. So let's pick up this and try this one. That's much lighter. So I can use it in this section right here. And I'm again going in little circles when I color. I'm making my circles in the same direction. So just little circles like this. And this is my test paper, so I haven't done it on the real paper. And so you should probably test to see what colors you like next to each other before you put it on your actual project. And you can make some sections darker. So I'm just going to start coloring. Let's pretend you didn't want to use all monochromatic colors. Here are some options that you could do. You could do the circles in warm colors and the whole background in cool colors. Or you could do the circles in cool colors and the whole background in warm colors. That's an option. Or you could do part of this, the top of it, in, you can come down your paper, I suppose, in like rainbow colors. There's all kinds of things that you can do with the colors. You can plan out something. Okay, friends, I've got it finished. This is what it looks like. In a monochromatic palette. Can't wait to see what yours looks like. Post some finished products. Have fun, be creative, do some art.